Hey everybody, I'm here today to talk to you about 7 driving tips for not speeding. If you want to make sure to not speed and avoid getting a speeding ticket, these 7 tips will help you do just that. Now let's get right to the tips. Tip number 1 is check your speedometer constantly. Now as you gain driving experience and as you drive more and more, you'll get better and better at actually estimating your speed. But estimating is just not good enough, because if you don't want to speed, then you can't leave it down to your predictions. You have to know that you're not speeding. And the best way to do that is to look down at your speedometer. Now on this 2017 Honda CR-V, I have a digital speedometer, but on my 2010 Mazda 3, I have an analog speedometer. So obviously with a digital speedometer, you're going to get to know the exact speed that you're driving. With an analog speedometer, you're going to get to estimate it down to 1 or 2 kilometers. You'll probably be able to get really close to the actual speed. But regardless of the type of speedometer that you have, check your speedometer constantly, okay? Check your speedometer constantly and monitor that speed. So if you speed up, then check your speedometer. If you slow down, check your speedometer, and just constantly check it to make sure that you're not speeding. Tip number 2 is to look at the speed limit signs. Now you can check your speedometer and you can assume that it's a certain speed, but you should be checking for the actual speed limit sign and comparing it to the speed that you're driving. So if you're driving, right now I'm driving on a street and the speed limit it says is 40 kilometers an hour. There's a 40 kilometer maximum sign up ahead. So I know that I can check my speedometer and just make sure that I'm going below 40 kilometers an hour. So use tips 1 and 2 together. Check your speedometer and check the speed limit signs. Tip number 3 is to know the local speed limits. So sometimes and oftentimes on main streets and on highways, there might not be any speed limit signs posted for a little while, but there will be local guidelines for speed limits on certain types of streets. Get to know what those are. This way, if you're driving and there's not a speed limit sign for another however many minutes, you'll know what the speed limit is because you know what the local guidelines are and the local laws are. So know the local speed limits. Tip number 4 is to look at the majority of cars. Now, this one you have to use with your judgment. Now, there's obviously gonna be 1 car, 2 cars, a few cars that are driving faster than the speed limit. But chances are the majority of cars around you are gonna be driving the speed limit or very close to the speed limit, if not the speed limit itself. So with that being said, look at the majority of cars. Are you driving faster than the majority of cars? Then double check your speedometer, because chances are if you're driving faster than the majority of cars, chances are you're probably driving faster than the speed limit, unless everybody else is driving too slowly. So check the majority of cars, because there's a good chance that the majority of cars will be driving the speed limit or really close to it. Tip number 5 is to use cruise control. Now, cruise control is a great feature. Let's say you're driving on the highway, the speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour and you're driving 98 kilometers an hour. If you want to make sure that you're not going to speed, set your cruise control for that speed. And this way you don't have to check your speedometer, because you know that your car will be maintaining that speed of 98 kilometers an hour below the speed limit. So I would say get a little bit below the speed limit and set your cruise control at that speed. By doing that, you don't have to constantly check your speedometer, and you can also ensure that you're not speeding. Just make sure that the speed limit doesn't change, because that is one thing that will obviously throw you off. Tip number 6 is to leave earlier, okay? Now, part of the reason that people speed is simply because they actually leave too late. Let's say that you think you're gonna have to leave at 7:30 a.m. to get to work on time. Okay, leave at 7:20. This way you won't be tempted to speed. Leave much earlier. It's one of the key factors. If you leave earlier, you're not tempted to speed. You're not subconsciously going to be in a rush. If you're subconsciously in a rush, then even if you don't want to speed, you're probably going to drive a little bit faster than you should, and therefore you're probably going to speed. You're more likely to speed. Last but not least, tip number 7 is to keep the consequences in mind. So the consequences will be different depending on where you live, but where I live, speeding is associated with a ticket, which goes on your driving record. Also, you might get points points off of your driving record, okay? Also, that ticket comes with, you know, a potential fine, and the fine could be quite a bit of money. Keep the consequences in mind. Also, keep the other consequences in mind. If you speed, you're actually more likely to get into an accident. You're actually more likely to make an error while you're driving, which could injure you, or the cars around you, or the pedestrians around you, or any objects around you, or anything. It's very simple. Think about the consequences and you'll be less likely to speed. And that's basically it. In this video, I've gone over 7 tips for avoiding speeding. Use these tips wisely and you'll be able to avoid speeding easily. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment. What are some other tips for avoiding speeding? Let me know as a comment down below. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more great car and driving videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.